The Forest of Death is one of the best parts slash mini arcs in the Naruto series. It is in one of the best arcs, the Chunin Exams, and a lot of people love it for good reason. It's a very high stakes, tense scenario with so many cool scenes happening in quick succession in a very fast pace. We have Sasuke fighting Orochimaru, then Naruto coming and helping them out, calling Sasuke a chicken. Sasuke gathers up his courage and faces Orochimaru down, but he loses and Orochimaru puts the curse mark on him, setting up several things for the future of the series. Then we get Sakura fighting the sound team. She cuts her hair off. A lot of people underestimate that scene, but it's a cool scene. Rock Lee comes and saves her. Then Inoshikacho comes and saves them. And then Sasuke humiliates and destroys the sound team using the curse mark for the first time. Not to mention that behind the scenes, Anko is investigating what's going on with Orochimaru. She fights against her former sensei. The situation is very tense, and we get to see Gaara and his team performing a brutal execution of the Rain Village team from Kibashino and Hinata's perspectives, also setting up Gaara as this absolutely terrifying villain that he's going to be for the arc. So it feels like, yeah, the Forest of Death is absolutely great. There are no flaws whatsoever. But whenever people talk about the Forest of Death, they never really talk about the last part. Like seriously, I've never seen anybody making a video or a post or a meme or anything else regarding the final fight Team 7 had to acquire the second scroll so they could pass the second round of the Chunin Exams. And for good reason. That fight's a low point in the Forest of Death and in the Chunin Exams as a whole, to be honest. A lot of people are gonna point out to the Ino vs Sakura fight as the lowest point in the Chunin Exams, but honestly, that fight's not even that bad. And neither is the final fight in the Forest of Death. The problem with this fight is that it's so unremarkable and almost kind of lazy from a writing perspective. It is one of the most forgettable fights in the entire Naruto series, and that's weird because it's in one of the most remarkable and memorable arcs in the whole show. So one would think that the fight that's going to essentially pass Team 7 in the Forest of Death trial is going to be cathartic. But no, there are a few problems with this fight, so let's analyze it a little bit more carefully. Team 7 actually gets an addition to this fight, which is Kabuto, who stopped Naruto from opening the scroll and getting disqualified before. Sasuke has this little scuffle with Kabuto when he realizes Kabuto has both scrolls, so they could steal one of Kabuto's scrolls to pass the exams, but Kabuto calls his bluff because he challenges Kabuto for a duel instead of sneaking up on Kabuto and attacking him, blindsiding Kabuto to get the scroll. Regardless of that, Kabuto joins Team 7 for the remainder of the Forest of Death as this kind of a mentor figure. He was a veteran of the Chunin Exams, and yeah, obviously he's an Orochimaru spy, he's a Jonin level fighter, he's capable of destroying pretty much every genin that's in the Forest of Death there, but he's playing his role. He is analyzing Sasuke's abilities, and also Naruto's in a certain way, and then he delivers the card to Orochimaru after they pass the exam. And yeah, obviously Kishimoto is putting Kabuto there to set up him being Orochimaru's spy and everything, but another reason for a more mechanical standpoint is so that Kabuto can deliver some exposition to Team 7 and explain what's going to happen as they come closer to the tower in the middle of the forest. Teams are going to start to gather up around the forest to ambush people that are getting close so they can get scrolls. And these teams may have different goals. Some teams just want to pass the exams by getting the scroll they need. Other teams want to get scrolls so that they can trade or even give to somebody from their village that couldn't get the scrolls during the exam, and so more people from their village will pass. And other teams just want to dispose of the competition so that in the following phases of the exams they are not going to have to deal with as many people. Which, yeah, I guess it's good for the audience to understand the stakes and the danger Team 7 is heading to, but they could have figured that out themselves. Adding Kabuto there kind of diminishes the tension from the get-go because our protagonists have somebody that's older than them and much more experienced than them watching over them. And yeah, Kabuto was set up as being kind of weak when Dosu attacked him in the beginning of the exams before they even took the written test and he started puking. But the fact that he had both scrolls already was kind of an indicator the guy wasn't clueless. And yeah, obviously he was faking his weakness, but even if you're reading Naruto for the first time and you don't know Kabuto's a spy yet, he's not gonna feel weak. He actually gives a bigger sense of security to Team 7 as they approach the tower. But that's not a terrible issue. You can still make a fight feel very tense. which sort of happens in this anticipation for the battle when Naruto kunais that big centipede and they just walk towards the tower until they realize they're walking in circles, a genjutsu. Which, yeah, I guess is a fine tactic for a Genin team to use against them, but it's not the most exciting thing. Yeah, a genjutsu could be part of this initial tactic Team 7 would have to deal with, but the strategy the enemies were using was just to tire Team 7 and Kabuto out and then attack them, which is just kinda boring, and it doesn't really ramp up the tension too much. Yeah, there's a time limit for the exams, but deep down we all know they're not gonna lose due to the time limit. We kinda know this final fight is just gonna be a fight so that Team 7 can get the final scroll and advance, but you could have put more effort into it. The enemies Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura face, they're kinda lame. They're from the Rain Village, and there's that guy that Sasuke fought in the very beginning of the Forest of Death, which was kind of a setup for this final fight. And the initial fight against that guy was fine. It was quick, it was a fast exchange, there was a subterfuge with Naruto getting captured and a guy transforming into Naruto, and it was a good appetizer for things to come, but to make it the final fight, yeah, it's not just the one guy, it's all three of them. Somehow they lack presence for a final battle of a mini-arc. And even though Team 7 is extremely tired, out of chakra, Sasuke can barely use his Sharingan because the curse mark keeps on flaring, you still don't feel as intimidated by those enemies as you were by Orochimaru, or even the Sound team when they were attacking Sakura. They actually felt intimidating, and that's even before the fight starts. I don't know why you get this vibe, but these guys don't look very intimidating. I guess it's because of how they look, you know, in their design. And even though there are several clones surrounding Team 7, you're like, oh, they got this, it's fine. Kabuto being there may contribute to that factor as well, as I said before. And once the fight starts, the tactic the Rain team uses is also pretty boring. They're using genjutsu clones, just illusion clones to fool Naruto and Sakura and Sasuke, and then they toss kunais from a hidden position to pretend the clones are actually dealing damage even though they are intangible. And for some reason, they cannot spot where the kunais are being tossed because they quote-unquote hide their presences too well and coordinate their tosses with the attacks of the clones, and this is one of the worst aspects of this fight, couldn't they triangulate where the attacks are coming from if they see the slashes happening and the direction the cut happened on somebody? Also, if they're actually tossing projectiles, you can see where they land, and therefore you can get an idea for the trajectory the projectile took, and so where the projectile was tossed from. Like, and Naruto's probably too clueless to do that, he's not a book smart guy, but Sakura was answering the questions of the written test by herself without cheating, so she would have the knowledge to figure that out. And Sasuke's not dumb at all either. I'm not even saying Kabuto should have helped them, because he was testing Sasuke out and everything, but Sakura should have been a little bit better at that. And yeah, it's good that Sasuke's curse mark's flaring to make the scene more tense. Sasuke is essentially useless in that fight. He can only tell that a few clones at the end of the fight are not real, and he also eventually finds out that the Rain Village guys were using Earth-style jutsu to burrow under them, and then attack them with solid strikes, using the illusion clones as a distraction. There's a bit of a scuffle with Kabuto, and you see a glimpse of Kabuto's bloodlust there for a brief second, which weirds Sasuke out. That instant of bloodlust from Kabuto gives the Rain Ninja a pause as he was about to hit Kabuto and finish him off, and that moment of hesitation allows Naruto to kick them, and actually he strikes all three of them at the same time with the same kick, and they lose. Now, there was a little bit of strategy before that, because Naruto used his shadow clones, and then he transformed his shadow clones into his teammates, which draws the real Rain Ninjas in to actually finish the fight off when they thought Team 7 was looking really tired. And that's a fine strategy, but Naruto does a much more clever strategy in the fight against Kiba in the preliminaries, using the transformation jutsu anyways, transforming himself into Kiba and then into Akamaru to fool Kiba himself. It's just that this fight wasn't impactful whatsoever, so much so that people forget about it. The strategy Naruto uses is fine, but it's nothing truly special, and yes, the fight is to show that Naruto is evolving because he pretty much solos the Mist team, which I'm fine with. The problem is how the fight itself unfolds, and it just feels that it drags a little bit too long. Because yeah, we all know this fight's supposed to give Team 7 the second scroll, and so they can pass. And because no real character development happens during this fight, just the realization that Naruto is getting stronger, and that Kabuto may have something he's hiding, the fight could have been much shorter because it feels like the Forest of Death comes to a halt when they're fighting these rain ninjas. Especially because we know the arc's about to come to an end, and because the fight lacks the impact, we just don't really feel anything. This is not one of those fights where a big character moment happens, or we have a lot of development for a particular character, or even plot-wise. It doesn't have anything nearly as impactful as Sasuke breaking Zaku's arms as he's going crazy with a curse mark, for example, so you could have just ended it quicker. But Kishimaru couldn't really do that, because if he ended this fight too quick, then it would feel like the Forest of Death was kinda easy, because the final fight was not too tough. And I understand that. You need the final fight of the mini-arc to feel impactful, so Kishimaru tried to make it longer, to make the fight feel more difficult, but at the end of the day, it just felt kinda boring. And there are a few factors contributing to it, as I said. Kabuto being there lends a sense of security to us, it drops the tension. The enemies are boring and kinda dull looking, especially their abilities. There are no big character moments for the Leaf team. And those three rain ninjas, on top of their powers being kinda boring in the way they unfold during the fight, they look exactly the same. And they have the exact same powers, there's no variety. It's as if they're fighting against three clones that can also make more clones. Like, can you honestly tell me the difference between these three Rain Village characters? They are the same character, they have pretty much the same design. And the same jutsu, so this gives the feeling we're fighting against a filler, unimportant, barely thought out enemy team. Like, they're just stock enemies for our main characters to defeat, and so the scene lacks tension. So how could we solve this problem? Well, one thing would be to remove Kabuto here, but I wouldn't do that. The stuff he does there is kind of important for things that are going to happen later in the Chunin exams, and for Kabuto's character himself, so you can keep Kabuto there. But you should pay off the setup Kabuto gave Team 7, telling them about the ambushes and everything. And yes, obviously the Rain team ambushed Team 7, but Kabuto said that several teams would be lurking close to the tower, and Naruto and his team fought against those Rain ninjas for hours, until dawn. There would have had a lot of time for other teams to creep by and assist or try and defeat Team 7 before the Rain Ninjas. So, one way to make this more interesting would be to include more teams into this fight and make things really chaotic. 26 teams started the Forest of Death and only 7 passed, and we don't even see most of those teams doing anything. You could easily just come up with a couple of new teams, new enemy teams for Team 7 to have to deal with, and no, they wouldn't have to deal with every single enemy. It could just be this chaotic battle royale that would make things more interesting, I think. Also, if you want to, you could add one of the teams we know, like Inoshika Cho, or even Team Guy, making this section of the Forest of Death a mini battle royale. And I understand this is kind of difficult for you to write and illustrate because a lot of characters fighting at the same time can get out of hand, especially when you have several different teams working together against everybody else. But then you can also have nice character moments, like teams helping each other or betraying each other. This could be the start of Naruto and Shikamaru's friendship if Inoshika Cho showed up, because Naruto was passed out when Inoshika Cho came to their help against the Sound team before. Or I don't know, you could give Tenten some screen time, like maybe she got lost from Neji and Lee, and now she's fighting alongside Team 7 as well, with Kabuto and everything against like 3 more teams, I don't know. There are several things you could do with it. And if you don't have the connection to the enemies, if those enemies are not gonna be terribly relevant for the story, if our main characters are never really going to interact with them again, just like it was with the Rain team they fought against in the original, you could compensate for that lack of engagement the readers may have on those enemies by just throwing a lot of different teams against them. And yeah, obviously Team 7 was extremely exhausted, even Naruto was getting tired, and he couldn't even use the Ninetales' chakra because Orochimaru had sealed him, but that's a good thing, because then they have to think strategically. Imagine Team 7 coming up with crazy strategies to fight against several teams at the same time and getting a scroll in the end. That would be much more interesting and less lazy than Naruto defeating all 3 enemies with a single kick. And you could also use this opportunity to give us a little bit of a glimpse of what Kabuto is truly capable of, even more so than what was done in the fight against the Rain team. Things would get more desperate for Sasuke with the curse mark flaring, and maybe Sakura would even have to try and do something because she just kind of watches the fight against the Rain team. She doesn't do a whole lot, she's just there. It would be an interesting opportunity for you to show the chaos of the battlefield just before they reach the tower like Kabuto promised us, but we just get a fight with one very boring looking team with a boring jutsu that is unimpactful and feels like it lasted twice as long as it should have. It's not even that the fight against the Rain Ninjas is terrible or anything, it's just lackluster for what the Forest of Death was. So many powerful moments and interesting fights happen in this mini arc that you would expect that the final fight would be very impactful, and yet it wasn't. Now maybe you could have set up a more interesting enemy team for this final fight, give them a little bit of screen time during the written test, just like Kishimoto gave some screen time to the sound team, and don't make all 3 guys look exactly the same with the exact same powers. That's kind of boring. Yeah, it takes more time for you to develop 3 different characters with different skill sets, especially if the characters are just gonna be in the manga for a single fight, but that would have made the final battle in the Forest of Death more interesting. Watch this video right here to find out who would have won the finals of the Chunin exams if they weren't interrupted. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't, and please ring notifications. Those things help a lot, and it takes 5 seconds, so please do. Thank you so much for watching.